let's go ahead and get started. So major Iran war updates the last 48 hours. Some military events first. Additional U.S. casualties are reported. The number of U.S. service members killed in the war has risen, with at least 7 fatalities confirmed. I think we all have a pretty good idea. It's probably higher than that, right? Airstrikes on Iranian military infrastructure. Satellite imagery shows destroyed tunnel entrances to the Isfahan missile complex, following recent strikes connected to the U.S.-Israel campaign. The oil infrastructure has been heavily under attack. Oil depots in Tehran were seen burning after overnight strikes, and a Bahrain refinery and desalination facility were damaged, affecting regional energy supply. Now, the desalination, that's important because that's how they drink. That's how they get drinking water, right? And supposedly, one was hit in Iran, and then also supposedly one was hit in Bahrain. So they're saying it's basically a war crime either way, right? You're attacking the freshwater supply. Shipping disruptions intensify. Tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is nearly halted, with hundreds of tankers stranded due to missile threats and naval risk. Now, I've heard, and a lot of sources are saying that the Iranian Navy is basically gone. But if there's still threats and naval risk, who's that risk coming from if the Iranian Navy is gone? Let's see what's that sound? That is... I'm monitoring multiple things at once, so I'm just trying to see what that's coming from. There were some alerts here a little bit ago in Israel, and I don't see... I mean, basically, honestly, all of Israel's lit up right now. So I don't know if that's coming from rockets or missiles. It's not saying. It's not differentiating. Let's see. Yeah, it's not saying what it is. It's just saying that there's alerts. So if anything comes in, then obviously I'll update you on that. And then Middle East airspace disruptions. Over 37,000 flights to and from the region have been canceled since the conflict escalated as airlines avoid combat zones. So obviously that's something that, you know, we'll have to keep watching. But there's a lot of flights that were canceled. One lady said she had 3 flights in a row that got canceled. And then political developments, leadership change in Iran. So, but Mojtaba, I'm not sure exactly how you say his name. It's Mojtaba Khamenei has been named Iran's new supreme leader after the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Large demonstrations occurred in Tehran supporting the new leadership. So Khamenei's son has been named the new supreme leader. And Western global responses, G7 countries are discussing releasing strategic oil reserves to stabilize energy markets. Trump has also talked about similar and some other things that he says he has in place. He says he has a plan to keep the barrels from being too expensive. But as we sit right now, I think it's at $120 a barrel or something similar. And people say once it hits 150, then we're in huge trouble. If it hits 200, then yeah, not good. It looks like it was a missile attack that's coming in. It says incident ended. So it looks like that launch that just happened, they must have intercepted. Let's see here. France is deploying naval forces to assist allies and protect shipping lanes. I think someone mentioned that in the chat as well. And now remember, initially they weren't going to, but they are. And Macron is heavily criticizing all of this, but he's still here helping, supposedly. Several countries are implementing fuel price controls and emergency energy measures due to supply disruptions. And analysts warn that the war could disrupt global supply chains and widen geopolitical tensions, including impacts on Europe and Asia's energy security. So as far as the crude oil and energy market, obviously we care about life, loss of life, and destruction of, culture and people's areas and their homes and that kind of stuff. But obviously there's the economic piece of this too. So oil prices are surging dramatically. Crude is near $119.50 per barrel, highest since 2022. It looks like some of it is down around 100 to 105, but at 119, that's a significant jump from like the 80 that it was previously. Major causes, Strait of Hormuz shipping disruptions. And you can see here in the Strait of Hormuz, it's definitely moving more than it was, but there's still some disruptions there. Attacks on oil infrastructure, which we've seen some depots get hit, and apparently there's allegations that it was Israel, and also allegations that the U.S. was not happy with those strikes. And then reduce production in Gulf states because they can't get it out fast enough. So they're actually having to stop production in these other countries. And that's going to be less to go out to everyone. Basically, a quick snapshot. This is the second week. Crude oil went from, it's at 100 to 105 per barrel after spiking near 120. Hormuz traffic is heavily disrupted, and there's at least 7 confirmed U.S. casualties. Yeah. There's no way I can believe that there's only 7, but maybe the other casualties are U.S. allies, maybe. I don't know. And then obviously refinery attacks, infrastructure strikes, and widening global military involvement. So that's the last 48 hours. And besides that, as far as I can see, and the stuff I've been looking at, there's no like huge major things happening except for world leaders and their interpretations of what's going on and how they are or are not going to get involved in this. So I'm just looking at this here. It says, was a school strike, this is the poll, was the school strike in Iran intentional? And 46% say yes, 15% say no, and 38% say not enough information. So let me see if I can pull it up here really quick. There was I did a video on it earlier today, but there's a post. Let me see if I can pull it up here really quick. This is the piece that, if this piece is true, there's really no denying what happened. Let me pull this up here. Okay. And I'm just checking chat to make sure. Looks like you guys can still hear me okay and everything. I appreciate everyone that's doing super chats and stuff, but you know, it's one of those things where, you know, like long term, if YouTube is, we'll just say some people say they get shadow banned. Some people say they get suppressed or whatever it may be. That's also why I did Rumble, and I'm on like 3 or 4 different sites. But long story short, I did multiple because I was like, well, if this one ever falls through, then I have other ones to fall back on. But the reality is there is no other platform that even comes close to how much creators can make as far as like live streams and stuff go. So for most people, if YouTube falls through, then they're basically done. I know some younger people can do okay with like, you know, TikTok or something. But for what I do, it doesn't fit into like the quick little dances and stuff, unfortunately. Hey, what's going on? Gizzard Gary in the house. Make sure if you guys get a chance, he has a cool little show that he does. He's been doing it for a long time. But I would definitely check out his channel if you get a chance, especially if you're into firearms and knives and stuff like that. Let's see. Jamie Marie, Matt, maybe you could text others and ask them to share on their SM and YouTube channel. So it's interesting. So you'll see certain people will get pushed really hard and other people will get suppressed really hard. And there's no like strict formula of how that works. So for example, like myself, I could talk about one topic and then someone else could talk about the exact same topic and they'll get blasted up to the top of the algorithm and get hundreds of thousands of views, and I'll get pushed all the way down the bottom. There's been a few topics, obviously, that I did decently well on, like the Charlie Kirk stuff and what else? So I have a few firearm training videos where I have like I have over 1 million views in like 10 months, and several others that are over like 500,000, 600,000 views. So it's not that none of my stuff is getting pushed. It's just like specifically like this war stuff, and it seems like anything that's kind of politically charged, I guess technically, is not getting pushed, and some of the Charlie Kirk stuff gets cut off quick. There's been some of my Charlie Kirk videos, for example, like if I talked about his security, I would get, you know, a couple 100,000 views. If I talked about the kid stuff, you know, the inappropriate touching of children, I'd be lucky if I get over like 20,000, right? So they're very, they have certain things they do and don't allow. And it seems like I'm tap dancing too close to the truth. And when I do that, they punish me for it. Let's see. All right, so this is what I was talking about here, and there was a map that went around as well, but the map shows that along the path of the map, it shows all the strikes they did in Iran, and this girls' school that everyone's talking about that had the 170 plus people that were killed, most of them children, most of them girls. People were geolocating it and doing all this other stuff behind the scenes, and it appears Make sure this isn't. That's pretty loud. Let me turn that down a little bit. So this is the strike here. So you can see, you know, a missile or whatever that was came in, and we'll see what it was here in a second. And then you can see the smoke coming up. And this is the location of that girl's school. Okay. So now this is where it gets interesting. Let's see, Pammy Cakes. Matt, even if you use code words like coach, I have tried that too. I think, so it's a combination of, like, they check your title, any of your description, your content itself, and then, you know, it's all combined. So if any piece of that is not like disguised, then it can cause problems. But even for like coach, I mean, he's been doing this for a long time. He's been in the algorithm for a long time, and he has like 3 times the viewership. You know, like he has like 300,000 plus subs. So his situation isn't quite as bad as mine, even if something did happen, because he would still get, you know, 100,000 plus views most likely. So I mean, part of that, I mean, I'm pretty new, like in the scheme of like YouTube and stuff. I'm only 10 months in, so I'm not even a year into it yet. So I think that might be maybe part of it. Let's see. Yeah, someone's saying code words is a form of self-censorship. Yeah, for sure. All right, but so we had this hit, and you can see it's basically in a, you know, little village area, little city. But if you look at the images, this is what people are seeing. And if you look at it, it has the little wings and the fins, and it's shaped just like a cruise missile, right? So if this is a cruise missile, I only know of one country that has cruise missiles. And this shows the location, the geolocation and everything. And there's also like a close-up of a cruise missile. And there's really no mistaking that that's what it is. And I have a video that I did earlier today that talks more about it and digs a little bit more in depth. But it looks like a Tomahawk, very much. So, unfortunately. But like I said, you know, in my video that I said before, was this intentional? I don't know. But it's next to a military target. So there could be a chance that this was not supposed to be a direct hit on that location, besides the fact that it happened twice in 40 minutes. So, yeah, someone says a double tap. So based on what I've seen, it seems pretty likely that it was probably on purpose. And as far as I know, only the U.S. can program these. So it would have to have been a U.S.-approved strike. But again, they have to come out officially and say, you know, they have to say their piece of what didn't happen and what was intentional or not. But we'll see what they come up with. So as of right now, I don't see, there's no more alerts or anything coming out. Okay. So I guess we can go into the clips. And could Tomahawks be fired from an F-35 launcher platform? I believe the Tomahawks can be fired from basically any platform. I believe they can be ground, air, or sea, because I know the subs have them as well. Okay, so we'll go on to this. So this is a ship that just happened to see some of our fighter jets leaving and going. And of course, they have the music, so I'll just show the video. But you can see there's one of our platforms. You can see them coming in and out. And I don't know if this is a like Chinese or Iranian or whatever ship, but I would assume it's just one of the tankers that's out there. Yeah, someone says this video is fake. I mean, I don't know. A lot of these videos, a lot of stuff you'll see could probably be spoofed. But J.D. Vance refers to this as a conflict, while Trump openly calls it a war. I know at one point during one of the conferences, Trump also called it a conflict. I think officially it's not war until like this, you know, until the Congress and everything officially vote on it. But as of right now, it's a conflict. And U.S. Israeli airstrikes targeted the city of Karamabad. This is western Iran. So the strikes are ongoing day and night. Large munitions. Lots of destruction. And, I mean, they're using the bombers for sure. The B. Jamie Marie, I appreciate that. Sharing that out. I am on Twitch as well. So I do Twitch, YouTube, and so basically I do Twitch, YouTube, X, and Spotify and Rumble. But like I said, the other platforms, even if you have decent like throughput and decent views, they don't pay that well, really. And yes, double taps definitely a bad thing. Some consider them war crimes for sure. And we have some people saying that the U.S. is worse than Nazis, of course. This was the IRGC generals said they're prepared to fight for the next 10 years. So that's coming directly from the IRGC. They said they're prepared to do this for 10 years straight. So they must have some major caches of missiles that are stored away. This was a monstrous explosion. I mean, all this stuff looks, apocalyptic. It looks like a volcano went off. So for Shannon Brown, a double tap is when they hit one location and then a short time later they hit it again. And typically the main problem with that is if they hit it the first time and then nothing happens for like say 20 or 30 minutes, they'll send in medics and stuff, right? And they'll have like EMTs and people on site, and even like military will go in to help people. And then they hit it a second time and they end up killing the medics and stuff. So that's the main issue with it. You said Ian says Kick. Maybe I'll check out Kick. I think I downloaded it, but I never set it up yet. But I appreciate that. U.S. intelligence has intercepted encrypted communications believed to have originated from Iran, which serve as an operational trigger for sleeper cells overseas. So we've already seen multiple attacks. Some of them I believe I have in here, but like terror type attacks, and they're happening around this time in multiple different places and in different countries. They've had things happen in Scotland and also Norway. We've seen things in the U.S. for sure in the last couple of days. We've seen bomb threats in schools in the U.S. So it's pretty crazy, and I think we're in a bad situation, and just really need to avoid public gatherings if you don't have to. This is a cluster munition. So that was part of the cluster munition. And this here, I'll paint this picture here really quick. So you have this white car on the left, and you'll see a gentleman walk out towards the street. The cluster munition hits kind of in the area a little bit back behind him. So think of that, but hitting like 20 different spots at once. That's kind of what a cluster munition is. And that's technically it's not illegal because these countries that are using them and getting hit with them are not in the treaty that prevented them. But other countries say that they're a war crime. So technically it's not illegal for them to be using it right now. As imagine, Trump said he's not happy with Mojtaba Khamenei. And basically, Trump is saying that now his son is in charge. If he doesn't approve of it, he basically can't guarantee his safety. So it's kind of like he's threatening that his son is going to be gone, right? So we'll see. We'll see if his son lasts for, maybe a couple weeks. I don't know, maybe a couple days. Depends on intelligence, but pretty crazy. And then these are more impacts, just huge explosions and stuff happening everywhere. We don't have to watch every single one. They get pretty loud. Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara. This goes to the world leaders and what they think. But we're witnessing in terms of Iran's continued attempts to destabilize Arab capitals and its interventions that directly affect the core of Arab national security is something we condemn in the strongest terms. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun urged the EU for direct talks with Israel, calling for a full ceasefire and backing the Lebanese army to dismantle Hezbollah and seize its weapons. So Lebanon wants to cooperate with Israel and the U.S. to get rid of Hezbollah. Okay. Turkish President Erdogan. Our F-16s, together with our airborne early warning and tanker aircraft, are monitoring potential threats 24/7. there were some Iranian missiles that went in towards Turkey again. Now, remember, they came out and they said that we're friends, we're brothers. That was an accident last time. This time, now they're getting ready. So Turkey is saying they are basically ready for whatever's coming. They think there might be an attack on. This was a security incident. This was a missile that actually fell and hit in Israel. The reason why it's under investigation is because I think it was just one. There were like 3 that were fired, 2 got intercepted, and this one didn't, and this one should have. So this could maybe be some kind of indication that their air defense systems malfunctioned or someone intervened with them. Maybe some jamming. So they're still trying to figure out what exactly is going on with that. Yeah, someone said they already did the red heifer. I've heard rumors of that, but nothing officially. Someone said they did it a long time ago. I heard it was done like several months ago. So Trump is talking about Gaza, and he's saying that everything they were talking about there for peace and all that stuff is paused, which, makes sense. They're in a much wider issue right now. And Trump is considering measures to keep oil below $100 a barrel amid the Iran war. It's over 100 right now, but he's talked about the G7 and then limiting exports, intervening in future markets, and waiving taxes. So he's trying to have a plan. He's trying to put things in place. There were bomb threats in Liverpool, in England. So like I said, this terror threat, this kind of spreading out. There's multiple schools that were threatened with bombs. We've seen bombs actually go off in certain areas when we've seen fires in Scotland. So this is something where this should be taken very seriously. But they basically have mobilized their sleeper cells all around the world. And of course, Putin, he says oil production is tied to the Strait of Hormuz. They could come to a complete halt early next month. And he says he's ready to supply Europe with energy if requested. So Putin, just being a nice guy, he said he's ready to help out. So I always have the Russian friends to help us. This is more bombing in Beirut. If you watch the Beirut cams, you'll see a decent amount of it. You almost see every strike, honestly. That one was just quick and dark, hard to see, but there's the fire from it. But that's kind of the cool thing about the Beirut cams, is you always can see what's going on. Diplomats from the U.S. are leaving Saudi Arabia. There's more of these cluster munitions happening in Tel Aviv. But again, they're not in that treaty, so they're not required to do that. This is aftermath in Lebanon. You can see they went scorched earth. And again, it looks like a volcano. It looks like a volcanic eruption. This is apparently the first Ukrainian soldiers are officially going to be going to train the Persian Gulf countries. So Zelensky is, now he has his pole. This is his moment to shine. 1 second. Is that? Okay. Sorry about that. It says the first Ukrainian soldiers and experts leave for the Middle East. So he's going to be going to teach them how to do drone warfare. That's jamming. That's going to be shooting them down, and possibly even some of the more modern ones that they've created themselves. I'm not sure if we actually get those, as part of this deal, but at least they're going to train them how to shoot them down, which I think is huge. And then this is more footage. This is Iran, the Iron Dome with the interceptors. And they said this is the largest amount of rockets they've seen in one day go out as far as interceptors go. It's about $20 million right there. But yeah, they're starting to target the water, the desalination plants, making it so that it becomes a humanitarian crisis. And obviously that's something you don't want. That's terrible. And technically a war crime. There's just some more missiles. People are saying that Iran's not launching anything. They are, but the numbers have gone down significantly here. But from Lebanon across, they're getting more than they expected. So that is something that has become their main focus now, is that northern border. And I've heard of many hits coming through so far. And Lindsey Graham says, why should America do a defense agreement with a country like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that's unwilling to join the fight of mutual interest. So what do you guys think about that? Like, do you think that we should be protecting countries that aren't willing to fight with us? I mean, that to me, that tracks, right? And this is one of the attacks. This is a New York terrorist who tried to throw explosives, and they didn't go off, right? They didn't explode, but he tried to. And there were nails and things in it. It was like a glass jar with explosive in it. And it was a very powerful explosive. The type that was in it was much stronger than typically used. So we're in the situation where we're under attack while we're attacking another country. And we knew this would happen, but we didn't know to what extent. And it seems like it's grown quite a bit. U.S. Central Command is issuing a safety warning to civilians in Iran March 8th, as Iran's terrorist regime blatantly disregards the safety of the innocent people. So it seems as though something that's happening in Iran is making them think that the people there are not being taken care of. And I also heard that the women's soccer team in Iran was going to be going to Australia, but now Trump said he will harbor them here. Iran has updated its target bank following overnight U.S.-Israeli strikes on infrastructure. They're basically saying they're no longer going to hit just military targets. They're also going to start hitting key assets and interests in the region. So that's a huge escalation. This right here, to me, when I first saw this, I was like, this is AI. And then when I started digging into it, they told me that, you know, everything, all the different sources said, no, this is real. This is insane looking. Again, I mean, it looks like, you know, Yellowstone went up or something. This is crazy. Yes, Swamp Lover. The word on the street is that we're going to be harboring the Iranian soccer, the women's Iranian soccer team. So it says a plan to get oil and natural gas and fertilizer and all the products in the Gulf flowing through the straits. One large tanker has already gone through the straits with no issues at all. Energy will flow. Trump has also said to these countries that are having the tankers go through or who are scared to go through, he's basically saying, you guys are scared. You need to be braver. You have to have more courage and go. We've already destroyed their navy. What do you have to worry about? That's what he's telling everyone. So I hope that doesn't result in casualties, but that's kind of where he's at. This is one of our very, very important satellites. And they've been working with China and Russia getting targeting data. So they're getting very, very good intelligence from two large countries that have, you know, formidable military. And they're using that information to target the satellites and things that Israel and the U.S. need to target them. So that's a major escalation. This is one of them getting hit. And that was a drone.
They hit the base of it. It knocked the lights out on that motherfucker.
So looks like they just missed that one. But they've hit a few billion-dollar ones already, and they're targeting all of them. And what that means is that, like, our missile defense and our targeting capabilities and that kind of stuff will be drastically hindered if that happens. And it's already happening, right? So it's something that, you know, to replace those would take years and billions of dollars. And then this is a CRAM. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it's a super high rate machine gun, and it's used for air defense. And you should be able to hear it in this too. But it shoots like 4,500 rounds a minute or something similar. So that was a successful intercept. But to me, those are pretty those are pretty awesome. Yeah, I think as far as numbers go, you know, a lot of people are saying that Iran can last 5 to 10 years at the current rate. There's no way the U.S. can last that long. So I'm not sure exactly what their long-term plan is here. And they're saying the next phase of the war has started. Things are supposed to get worse and that kind of stuff. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see if it's all talk. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. and a lot of analysts, like military-style analysts, don't know either. But this is a helicopter that's attacking some of the rebels. Maybe some Hellfire missiles. So, I mean, this is all-out war like you would see in a video game, and it's getting pretty bad. So that's when they say 7 casualties. There's no way. There's no way. Yeah, and I've had a lot of people contact me talking about their kids, right? Like, think about people's children in this situation. You know, luckily, right now, my kids are underage, but I have friends with children that are like, you know, 18, 19, 20 years old, maybe up to like 25 or something, and they'd be first pick for a draft. And Trump has been talking about the possibility of a draft. He says not yet, but he remains open to that, you know. So, yeah, it's scary times, especially if you have children, especially children of age. But in a war that no one really wanted, right? And Iran's FM says the U.S. carried out a blatant and desperate crime by striking a freshwater desalination plant on Qasem Island. He warned that attack on Iran's civilian infrastructure is a dangerous escalation with grave consequences, adding that the U.S. set this precedent, not Iran. And then shortly after that, then Bahrain's desalination plant got hit. Let's see. We have a new alert. This is near Jerusalem. It says missile launches. So there were some missiles that were just launched. And typically when this happens, within a few minutes, they'll have another alert that comes out saying it's all clear because they intercepted. So we'll see what happens here. We have some more Lebanon strikes. And I think a lot of these are targeting leadership, which makes sense. You know, you get rid of the leaders and then it takes them a little bit of time to reorganize. But what's happened in Iran is they've decentralized. So you have different factions and different groups and different pieces of the military that are doing their own thing, which means it makes them more dangerous. It's like you're fighting, 20 different militaries instead of just one. And they all have the ability to launch all this stuff. But this is TPUSA. This is them talking about Charlie's wishes with Iran. And they've already gotten roasted for this.
I know we at Daily Wire, we trust you at TPUSA to do it. I mean, that's really the answer. We're willing to provide, and we are providing, any level of material support, any level of support on the ground, boots on the ground, helping you to do what Charlie would have wanted to be done here. And I think that the reason that everybody trusted Charlie, the reason we're all mourning Charlie, is because nobody did it better. You spelled out 2 of Charlie's goals. You said, he wanted to bring people back to Christ and bring people back to church and back to biblical values. And he wanted to keep the MAGA coalition together.
And expand it.
And the question is how you do that. And the answer is you focus on the first, and the second is a byproduct. Okay, the answer is that, as Matt says, you have to unite around something. And yeah, we can unite in the short term around the fact that there are a bunch of people who hate our guts and want to murder us, which of course is true. But long-term unity, big movement change, which is what Charlie was really trying to drive, and why he went to talk to people who disagree, is about building around those core values. And so the long-term vision, yeah, we'll have our petty squabbles, and yeah, some of those squabbles will be more than petty. But
now, for any of you that have actually been following this stuff, you know that Charlie was very, very against the war in Iran. And he was probably a big part of why the initial time that we were going to attack Iran, we didn't. So, them coming out and saying that basically like Charlie was for this was his vision, this was his direction, is just a lie. And of course, Lindsey Graham. Oh, here we go. Let's see. More coming in. And let me know, is that alert too loud? Let's see, we have more incoming to same area near Jerusalem. More missile launches detected. Okay. Swamp Lover says levels fine. Okay. Lindsey Graham told Trump in private conversations that Khamenei was similar to Adolf Hitler and Iran was a historically weak position. Now, let me mute these. There's a lot coming in. I'll keep watching them. If we need to go to the cams or something, we can do that. Let's check really quick. Oh, we got some going. We'll see if we can see anything on here. Any interceptions or anything? Or launches? See the intercept on number 3? All right, now I'm going to test something out. I have this thing that I set up, and I'm not sure if it's going to work, but it supposedly allows me to replay things that happen. So let me see if I caught it. Give me just a second here. Stand by, please. Yeah, they've been deleting a lot of Charlie's information from all the different platforms. All right, so it looks like those current ones. Let me see if they gave the all clear. They have not given the all clear yet. So maybe we'll stay here for a minute. But I think there's interceptions happening or hits. You can see the camera shaking. All right, we'll come back and check that here in a minute. So this is the little thing that I set up. So basically it lets me go like 60 seconds in the past and record. So I want to see if this actually picked all the intercept up that we just saw. Up here in number 3. There it goes. Okay, so it works. All right, awesome. So that actually works. So it looks like the intercepts and the replays work pretty well. All right, so should we, I'm guessing we should probably keep an eye on that cam here for a minute. Because they have more incoming. So probably just hang out here for a minute and see if anything happens here. We do have spikes at a few places for the pizza index. 244% at We The Pizza. We had Domino's Pizza and District Pizza were at over 300% earlier today. So there's definitely some intel going on. I've not seen any earthquakes in Iran. I know we had a few days in a row and people were speculating that maybe there was some some funny business going on there with testing, but I haven't seen any since that day. I've still been tracking those drones that were to the east of Cyprus. They've been there pretty consistently every day. Let me see if there's any sub hunters going on right now. That's an interesting location. So there's one plane that looks for subs over in the Middle East, but it's over land. So I'm not sure what exactly it's doing. And then we have several over the U.S. East Coast again. Trying to see what their patterns are. Yeah, they're not over water either. Very strange. All right, so we have one here again. Let me show this really quick. So we have this Poseidon, which is a plane that looks for subs, nuclear subs specifically. And it's off the east coast of Florida again, looking for subs. And obviously that's a big issue because of Mar-a-Lago and the president's home. And that's been pretty consistent most days now that that's been happening. Get a quick screenshot of that. All right. I'm not seeing any all clears yet. Oh, there's one. Let's see. Missile intercepted. We might be clear on this one. That was near Jerusalem. There's a lot more alerts than that. But I wonder if they just alert the general area, which there's a ton of different individual little precincts and stuff that they alert. So I wonder if those like 30 or 40 different alerts we were hearing was for the same exact missile coming in. All right. So I think what I'll do is I'll just read instead of showing the there's other explosions and stuff, but it's the same stuff you've seen. But because of what's going on with the monitoring over here with Tel Aviv, I will probably leave it on this screen and just read off the news until something happens if it does. Many people have seen that we're using lasers to intercept drones and missiles. And I guess they've been fairly effective overall. The main one is the Odin. And it's pretty cheap. It's like, it's like $20 or $30 a shot. Some people are saying as low as like $14 a shot. And you don't have to refill it. I'm sure you have to maintain it, but that's compared to $1 million interceptor missile. So that's a huge difference. And hopefully there's something that's effective long term that we can just put that everywhere and not have to use these interceptors anymore. And we have one source from Iran that says the EU is a legitimate target if it joins the war. So they're now threatening Europe, which I think is expected. And Candace Owens is saying Charlie Kirk was the first casualty of the war in Iran. Never forget what they did to him. That's what she's saying. Yep, so that is all the current updates. So we'll go back to, do we want to do live now or do we want to do Al Jazeera? Actually, I'll just do a poll. It'll be easier. Let's see. Cyberspin recordings. Someone's saying it's not a cruise missile. So if that is true, that will come out. But it looks a lot like a cruise missile to everyone else. So we'll find out what is actually going on. He's saying it can't go over a certain amount of degrees. So let me look that up.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Agradecemos
We
a la
thank
representante especial
the
adjunta
Deputy Special
Georgette
Representative
Gagnon
for Afghanistan, Ms. Georgette
su
Gagnon,
exposición.
for her briefing. And we recognize the crucial work done by the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan. We welcome to the chamber Her Excellency Baroness Jackie Smith, Minister of State of the United Kingdom, and we also welcome to the chamber representatives of the countries that do us the honor of participating in this meeting today. Panama notes with grave concern the worsening of the situation for women and girls in Afghanistan. The persistent restrictions placed on girls' access to secondary and higher education, together with the provisions recently adopted by the de facto authorities through new national legislation, raise serious questions about the social and economic future of the country. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, this new normative framework incorporates into the national legal order restrictions which directly affect women and girls. These include provisions which limit their freedom of movement, erode the protections they enjoyed against domestic violence, and ratchet up mechanisms for moral control within the family environment. These provisions institutionalize patterns of discrimination.
All right, so we have someone in the chat saying that that cruise missile was supposedly at like 70 degrees or something. I don't believe that's true, but it says that they can hit anywhere between 20 and 45 degrees, and in some cases up to 55 degrees or more. The strike that we saw, it looked like it was well within that 20 to 45 degrees, but yeah, I mean, we'll keep looking into it. Obviously, they're doing a full investigation, so hopefully, I hope it was not us, and I hope it was not intentional, but based on the path that everything went, it was right in path with everything else that we did. So time will tell. We'll just have to pray that that's not true and that nothing else like that happens again.
Justified discrimination. Discrimination which stymies the implementation of UNAMA's mandate and undermines its ability to provide effective assistance to Afghanistan's people. President, the threat of terrorism remains one of the most serious challenges to the stability of Afghanistan and of the region. The most recent report of the Secretary General documents the presence and activity of terrorist groups such as ISIL-K and TTP, among others. These groups continue to represent a significant threat both for civilians and for the security of Afghanistan, and for the security of neighboring countries and of the region in general. The persistence of these threats lays bare the crucial importance of ensuring that Afghanistan does not become an arena which enables the operation of terrorist groups. Some states in the region, such as Pakistan, are already directly weathering the consequences of this threat. Consequently, preventing the scenario outlined above requires sustained efforts and decisive international cooperation. Panama is of the view that the fight against terrorism is a shared responsibility because no country is ever entirely safe from this threat. Terrorism is our common enemy, and our response must be rooted in the principle of the responsible cooperation between states. Finally, President Panama believes that Afghanistan's future must be built in such a way as to avoid the country once again descending into a cycle of violence and widespread conflict. We must tackle the root causes of the fragility the fragility Afghanistan continues to face. The only way of forging ahead along this path is for the de facto authorities to demonstrate a will to engage constructively with the international community. They must guarantee conditions which allow Afghanistan to move towards a more inclusive, stable, and peaceful environment. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Panama. I give the floor to the representative of the DRC.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, I have the honor to deliver the statement on behalf of the A3 countries, namely Liberia, Somalia, and my own country, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We thank the Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General for Afghanistan and Officer in charge of the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, Ms. Georgette Gagnon. We thank her for a comprehensive briefing. We also would like to welcome the presence here of Baroness Jackie Smith, Minister of State from the United Kingdom. Mr. President, the A3 remain concerned by the complex political, humanitarian, and socioeconomic challenges facing Afghanistan. The Afghan people continue to endure the consequences of prolonged instability. In addition to that, there is economic hardship and limited access to basic services. The A3 reaffirmed the importance of sustained international engagement in support of the Afghan people. And in this regard, the A3 would like to highlight the following points. First, the A3 group reiterates its strong commitment to the sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity, and national unity of Afghanistan. Second, the A3 reiterates.
It looks like Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Turkey President Erdogan are trying to they will do like a joint task force, I guess, type of thing to investigate. Because we keep hearing that there's missiles fired from Iran into Turkey or towards Turkey, and like drones and stuff coming into Turkey, and some, things falling down into their space. And Turkey is putting up F-16s and stuff now to try to intercept if anything does come that direction. But Iran is saying that they're trying to reduce tensions in the region, and they denied accusations of missile attacks. So if that's the case, then where are these missiles coming from? If that's true, right? And Erdogan said Ankara never thinks of confronting Iran and stressed that more than ever, there's a need to open the doors of diplomacy. So they're trying to work together, but someone's launching missiles towards or into Turkey. That's very interesting. I've heard other reports similar to that. The main one was that the direction that some of the missiles and drones were coming from didn't match coming from Iran. So that's something to think about too. It looks like all the Iranian missiles were intercepted from that last volley. It didn't say how many they launched. Because remember, previous they're launching like a couple hundred at a time, 36, 50. So it seems like now it's just one or two at a time. And I don't know if they're trying to kind of like save munitions just in case, or if because of all the strikes by the U.S. and Israel, they've taken out all their launchers. All right, let's see what we have in the poll. 89% Al Jazeera. All right, so I will update that. Give me 1 second here. Let's see if they're even covering it right now. They've been going in and out of war coverage. Let's see. Yeah, like right now they're covering Africa. They have like a little ticker on the bottom saying that there's big explosions in Beirut, but they're not doing like legitimate coverage of the war. So I guess if that's the case, would that change your vote? If Al Jazeera is not doing true war coverage, do we want to stick with Live Now? Damon Boyser, thanks for the super chat. Thank you for your coverage. Belmia, thanks for the super sticker. Sarah Bryan, here's the new thing they are doing. Oh, what is the new thing they're doing? hype, and then you can add any info. Thanks for the super chat. Katie, thanks for the super. Freedom Warrior as well. Smarty Pants Dance. Smoothies for little triggers. They do like smoothies. They definitely like their smoothies, mostly scooters. Sato Gaming, thanks for the super. Thanks for your coverage. Bonnie Lynn, thank you for sharing as long as you can. I shared it to Facebook and let people know there's real-time coverage with your channel. Sabrina Bishop, thanks for the large super chat. So happy for new stream today. Hope you have a great weekend with the family. Yeah, it was fun. We had a good time, and our weather's starting to shift a little bit, so we will start to spend more time like fishing and that kind of stuff, just being outdoors. William, thanks for the supers. We have 3 of them. Let's see. Any sane person is against war. Just imagine if we had let the IRGC develop further. These missiles would be landing here in the U.S. That's definitely something they were discussing, right? They said they weren't working on long-range missiles yet. They were let me hold on. The siren's getting a little obnoxious over here. Okay. They said they weren't working on long-range missiles to hit the U.S. supposedly, but you know, they have the technology for sure, and they could just be handed that technology quickly by China or Russia. Charlie was murdered for money, not because he objected to war. The planes are sniffing for uranium in some cases. Our ports have been threatened with a dirty bomb. Oh, interesting. So they're doing both, huh? Looking for subs and possible uranium coming in. It's an interesting thought. Interesting. So let's go back and look at that really quick. I want to see. So this is the only one I see that's actually off the coast. But with what you're saying, yes, they can sniff nuclear material. So they could be looking at other places too. So let's see where this one was. That was just, oh, let's see. Okay. So now that you've said that, this one was circling around Uniontown and Akron. So if that's the case, then we could have some dirty stuff coming into the ports. And they could also be looking for possible like nuclear bombs and stuff too. I'm not saying that there is one, but that's interesting for a plane that usually is over water looking for nuclear subs. So there's one. Where'd this other one look at? Let's see. That was this guy. We already did that one. That one's just getting started, so we don't know really with that one yet. I know we had some over here. That one's, yeah, that was kind of doing the same thing. Interesting. So we have some more cases of them circling in areas where they typically wouldn't. Huh. Okay. So apparently, because typically I don't see these do this kind of pattern, especially over land. So it looks like they're all hitting. That one didn't really do much there. And then Spokane. Here's Spokane. Yeah. And there's an airport there. So I wonder if like what William was saying, if they're expecting or trying to prevent some kind of attack with possibly a nuclear weapon or some kind of uranium contamination, like a dirty bomb or something. Interesting. All right, we'll go back over to the Middle East over here.
Analyst James Rubinowitz, great to have you on, James. What do you make here of this lawsuit that was just filed today?
This is a really interesting lawsuit, Mike, and here's why. It's a lawsuit that is predicated on a law that has typically been directed at foreign adversaries, and that is what Keith Hegseth, that is what Donald Trump are both saying here. They're saying that Anthropic falls under the same category as foreign adversaries, and because of that, they're declaring Anthropic a supply chain risk. And as a result, Anthropic is now suing the government, saying that they are violating their First Amendment rights and are violating rights with a chilling effect to prevent other AI companies from doing deals with the government.
Yeah, this is such an interesting case here. We saw everything really break down last week, and then the Pentagon doubling down, tripling down on those statements. So going forward here, what is Anthropic have to do now to prove, to say, hey, this is not what the Pentagon is saying about us is true?
It's a very interesting thing because the argument that they're making is not a traditional First Amendment argument. They're saying that it isn't the traditional speech, assembly, or freedom of religion that we typically see in a First Amendment case. They're instead saying that it is contractual negotiating terms that fall under this umbrella of First Amendment rights. And what do I mean by that? Well, Anthropic is essentially saying that the guardrails that they tried to put
KJ Mama, that is by me. Should we be concerned? So, like, not to scare people, right? But you always want to be aware of what's going on around you. It's called situational awareness. So in this case, if it is near you, then the possibility is there that something could happen. We know that Iran has basically mobilized all of its sleeper cells, not to mention that they're allies with Russia and China. They also have sleeper cells here. So could something happen? Probably. Do I think it's like an imminent threat at the moment? I don't know. It's really impossible to tell. But I would just say if you're in that area, just be ready. Have your supplies. Be ready to leave the area as fast as you can. Have bags ready with like 72 hours worth of food and water and medicine and all that stuff for you and your family. Make sure you have gas in your car. Always top off. Try and keep at least never let it go below half a tank. Always keep half a tank or more so you can get out of the area. Let's see. Christ is king indeed. Thanks for the super. Our best ally is not our friend. If Trump decides to stop doing BB's bidding, they would turn on us. AIPAC-funded people run the U.S. government. Yes, and if you look into the funds for that, which I think Danks, if you see Dankster on YouTube, he covers a lot of that. And it's insane seeing how much money is spent on these people. A lot of our politicians are getting, 600,000 plus billions of dollars from AIPAC. So how can we trust them to make any decisions for the U.S.? It's pretty crazy.
By declaring Claude and Anthropic that supply chain risk. The question is whether or not the judiciary is going to actually make that bright line in the sand and say, yes, Pete Hegseth, as the Secretary of Defense, is allowed to do this, and whether or not going forward, the government will be able to use this as a negotiating tactic to essentially allow them to use it for mass surveillance and autonomous weapons.
Isn't it a little bit of an awkward situation right now? Because even though that the government said, okay, we're going to start winding down Anthropic, I mean, in these next 60 days, they can still be using it, correct?
Exactly right. And in fact, they are still using it, even while currently at battle.
Based on the feedback from the poll, I will set up that 24/7 stream. The only thing I can't put in it legally because of copyright and stuff is the news. So it would basically be similar to what you see here. You would have your intel, which is the most important part to me, honestly. But you have your intel that automatically switches through. So you can track all that stuff real time. And then it would have the latest cams. And then it would have the nuclear attack codes, which my radio and stuff will be here tomorrow. And I'll set all that stuff up tomorrow. So most likely that 24/7 stream will be set up tomorrow or Wednesday. Most likely Wednesday, and that will just run all the time, and it will be without me in it, obviously. I can jump into it if I need to, but it's designed just for you to be able to sit there and monitor and listen to stuff and kind of do your own thing. And then I'll also do these regular streams and videos in addition to that.
This supply chain risk. And of course, there was a lot of backlash against OpenAI because of it. I think I saw that there have been more deletions from the App Store on Apple's iOS system than any other app in history since the government made that deal with OpenAI. And alternatively, Anthropic has made it from number 42 in the App Store to number 1 in the App Store since this deal has been made. So I think the question is whether or not OpenAI is going to be able to do the same thing Anthropic did for the government, because Claude has certainly proved to be a fantastic AI model.
And there we go. Very interesting times we live in right now. James, thanks so much for breaking it all down for us. Fascinating right now. We'll see where it goes. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
You take care. All right, everyone. We'll take another 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox as we continue to roll on with other top stories and headlines. Stay right here with us.
And their music begins. Let's see. Hey, Texas gal Sophia, how's it going? Let's see. Julie, you're saying Julie for mod, Julia for president, Julie mods for Baron. Is there something going on with Julie? I didn't see the first message. Hey, Esoterica, how's it going? Let's see. Though I saw the shirt I have on. Yes, it's on my... let me pull it up here really quick. So if you go to my YouTube channel... I'll show this over here in the other window. But if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see this. And if you go here to more like to the links that are in here, then you can see all of this stuff. It's also in the description, but it's going to be under TriggerSmart merch. And then when you go here, you can see all the different stuff I have. I have the allegedly gear. There's stickers, mugs, you know, all this different stuff here. Different variations of shirts and mugs and hoodies, and some are embroidered, some are printed. And then if you get further into all of the stuff here, like view all, then that's when you'll see this original stuff here. So there's like your original TriggerSmart gear. So the shirt I'm wearing right now is this one, this TriggerSmart soft unisex, and you can get different colors, but that's where it all hides. So I had this original logo gear and sold some of that, but a lot of people were asking for, you know, just more generic type stuff that wasn't, they didn't have my specific logo and stuff on it. So I had made these as well. I also have an Amazon storefront. This was obviously from the firearms content, but if you shoot firearms or want to, or get into training and stuff, I made this Amazon storefront that has everything you can think of for training and targets and medical, cleaning kits, you know, belts, range day, outdoors, steel targets, everything. So it's a good source too if you want to pick anything up. They don't give discounts, obviously, but what they do is they take the regular price they charge, and just in general, and then I get some of the kickbacks from that.
Hey there, Mike. Well, it really is an unbelievably tragic sequence of events. These students here at North Hall High School were trying to play a prank on one of their teachers, so they went to his house and threw toilet paper all over the property, as people do. But that's when things took an unimaginable turn. As you mentioned this afternoon or earlier today, that teacher's family has put out a statement encouraging that the prosecutor drop the charges against these teens involved. Now, I want to show you who we're talking about. This is 40-year-old math teacher and golf coach Jason Hughes here at North Hall High School. Now, according to the sheriff's office, the group of teens tried to toilet paper his yard. When he came outside, deputies say the teens then jumped into their two cars, and as Hughes approached the street, he tripped and fell into the road, and then deputies say one of those cars hit Hughes. Deputies say the driver, 18-year-old Jaden Wallace, has been charged with vehicular homicide. But today, the teacher's family put out a statement to put the record straight. They say there was never any confrontation. Hughes was never mad. He was actually playing along with the prank and, quote, waiting to catch them in the act. Their statement reads in part, quote, the students immediately tried to provide aid until the paramedics arrived, and Jason loved these students, and they loved him too. Our family fully supports getting the charges dropped for all involved. Now, just a little while ago, I asked a criminal defense attorney if the prosecutor could listen to the victim's family at this point. Listen.
Yeah, just real quick, everyone in chat, you can always block other people. So if you just do the little triple dots and block, that's one way to do it. Obviously, if someone is being legitimately disruptive to everyone and pissing everyone off, then we'll just ban them. But you always have the freedom to do the first step yourself.
Family. At that point, the prosecutor will then decide on whether to proceed or not to proceed.
And so, Mike, that is the big question here today. I did reach out to the local district attorney here in Hall County. He got back to me a little while ago. He said he wouldn't do an interview, but rest assured that the family of the deceased will be heard and taken into account as the matter moves forward. Meanwhile, the Hall County superintendent here is also echoing the grief being felt in this community. He said that this teacher gave so much to so many in numerous ways as he faithfully served God. Our hearts and prayers go out to his wife and family. The district says grief counselors were here on campus working with students throughout the day. They also held a private memorial service for themselves just to reflect on such a tragic day. And meanwhile, you got to keep in mind that their senior prom is just a couple days away, and these students were taking part in a ritual that so many have throughout the years, which is senior pranks. And unfortunately, it had such a devastating ending here in Hall County. Back to you, Mike.
Yeah, Rob, definitely a very freak accident that turned deadly, and now really family members on both sides really grieving during this difficult time. Rob, we appreciate all the updates here on Live Now from Fox. Always great to have you on. All right, everyone. We'll take another 2-minute break. When we come back,
Oh, man, we should start counting how many 2-minute breaks Fox takes. They spend almost as much time off air as they do on air. That is hilarious. Yeah, so flights around Cyprus. Let's go look at that really quick. And shut this off. So we have... Let's see, this is a military, this is U.S. So we have a U.S. military 737. I'm not sure what this particular aircraft is doing. Could just be transporting people. We have an Atlas, and as far as I know, that is cargo. So let me look that up here really quick. Yeah, strategic airlift. But it's interesting that it's circling a lot like the Poseidons. Huh, interesting. It looks like we might have a couple of those over here. This is another military plane. This one doesn't necessarily do anything as far as like recon and stuff goes, but let me look and see. Because that's an interesting pattern that it's doing. Let's see. It's an ISR aircraft with advanced sensors, satellite communication, and defensive aids, offering enhanced surveillance. So this is a surveillance plane. That's a pretty interesting pattern too. I don't know if these ones look for like radiation and stuff like the Poseidon, but they're definitely probably looking for incoming missiles and drones. Then there's one more plane, this one here. And that's the same one, or that's, the same type of plane, I should say. So this one is also doing surveillance and ISR. So they're definitely watching out for the island. And I know that the UK and France, I believe, we're also supposed to be sending some reinforcements. And then you have this drone over here. This is one of those MQ-9Bs. And it's doing the same thing. It's just circling, looking for anything that's incoming. And that, I think the same one, I have to look at the ID. But this one, I think it's been the same one for a couple days now. And I think some of them are solar powered so they can keep up, for a very long time. But definitely a lot of activity watching there. Obviously, Beirut's getting hit hard, which is right over here. So, they're just watching, making sure nothing's coming their way. And Cassia, let me see, does she have... Cassia had some posts that were updated, basically saying that they could see interceptors from Cyprus that were hitting Beirut. And also she could hear, let me see really quick. And she's back to her regular posting schedule, so I think she's doing okay over there. Let's see what she has here. She said, Cyprus, we could hear recent bombings in Beirut over here. Now we can see the missiles too. This was captured today, which was yesterday, at 5:30 a.m. and likely a high altitude interceptor contrail. So you can see, let me move to a different spot here. But you can see the contrail from the missile there. And I think she has some, well, let's see, you know, she's always trolling and stuff. She has fun trolling people. But yeah, just in general, she's doing okay. So I know some people were asking about her again too. But as far as flights and that kind of stuff go, I haven't seen any Poseidons back down here. I know initially we had one that was kind of in this area to the west of Israel and north of Egypt. And I haven't seen anything go back there since. Doesn't mean they're not there. Obviously, they could have their transponder turned off, but the rest of these, we have some strato tankers for refueling. Oh, wait, what is that? This interesting pattern. What were they circling here? Huh. Yeah, I don't know what they were circling on that one. So we have these C-40 Clippers. What do these do? Looks like we have multiple of them out, and I haven't seen those the last couple times I've looked. Military transport. Okay. So they're moving cargo. So it looks like they're moving a decent amount of stuff then, if that's the case. The Voyager is also cargo. So you have these Beach Kings doing ISR. Then you have the Globemasters and the Voyagers and stuff moving cargo. Then you have a couple of surveillance planes. Seems like business as usual. The only thing we're not seeing is what we saw before, which was anywhere from 7 to 18 different stratotankers for refueling fighter jets. We have more transport, airlift. It's probably Strato. Yeah, that's a refueler. So, not seeing as many refuelers as before. So I'm actually curious if the fighter jets have slowed down and the B-1B bombers and the B-2s and stuff have actually taken over the B-52s. I don't know if I can make that assessment based on what I'm seeing, but if there's a lot less stratotankers to refuel the fighter jets, then that means that they're using the fighter jets less, I would assume. But I know that the fighter jets were also, I know that the Red Sea, I know that the original aircraft carrier moved back about 100 kilometers. So they were closer at one point, and then they moved back because some drones or missiles or something were supposedly headed their way. Supposedly hit them, according to some sources, but that was never confirmed by the U.S. And then Strait of Hormuz, we're seeing the same, less congested for sure. There's some movement. If you saw this before, you basically couldn't see any of the black water because there were so many ships that were just jammed in here. And now we're seeing actual traffic moving around. It's interesting because some sources are saying that it's essentially closed, and other sources are saying it's open and there's movement. So again, that's like the fog of war or just blatant lies, but it's always interesting. Still a spike at We the Pizza. As far as radiation goes, there was a spike. There's a radiation spike over here in Budapest, but it's nothing crazy. And typically, like we have those in the U.S., we have several. So we have one in Texas and one in Connecticut, it looks like, or Delaware. It's hard to tell. Let me get rid of that. Yeah, so I mean, we regularly have 2, 3, or 4 in the U.S. and rarely see them over in Europe. So seeing that one is even strange, but nothing in the Middle East, nothing in Russia, Ukraine. And then this is the fires. So this is confirmed fires from NASA satellites. And this would let you have a kind of an idea of where some of the strikes and stuff may have been in the past or where something's burning in the Middle East. So you can see in Israel, there's some spots that are on fire. And in Iran, you can see there's several. So is this like a one-to-one of the stuff that's being, going on right now and the explosions and stuff? Not necessarily, but it gives you an idea where there's a lot more activity. So this would tell you that some of the stuff is getting through, but there's also natural fires, right? If you go to look at this, I mean, these are, this is fires from satellite. So you can see there's always a lot everywhere at all times, basically. And in comparison, almost nothing over here. But I think the ones we are seeing could possibly be related to the strikes and some of the bigger fires and stuff. And then this side I'm still learning, like what all it can do. But it tells you numbers of things. So there's 22 satellites being used, 422 aircrafts. They also talk about different ports and how many boats and that kind of stuff when they're nearby. But the other thing it does is when there's a launch, and I don't know if we'll get to see this today or not, but like the launch that we just had that came from Iran, it'll actually show the trajectory. So say, for example, if it launches from like 19 over here and launches somewhere near like 2, for example, then it will show a dotted line that's red with a question mark, basically saying like based on the trajectory of the missile right now, this is about where it would hit. And then you can click on different things and get like distances, the towns and cities in that area that are going to get hit, how fast it should, might be traveling and stuff like that. So it's almost like real time, like wargaming kind of. But I want to play with that a little bit more because I'm sure it's more powerful than what I'm seeing. And then of course, earthquakes. I don't think we've seen any. This shows all of them. But just for this one, we just had one in Turkey, a 5.1. Well, 2 in Turkey. We had a 5.1 and a 4.2 in about the same region. The other day we had a couple that were in Iran, which, people are like, oh, it's a nuke. They tested a nuke. Well, maybe. But they were on the western side over here. But we've been seeing those. We know it's a seismically active region. So it's hard to say if they were testing something, but it's good to know, right? The more you see them, or if they start getting bigger and bigger or something, then maybe we can be like, hey, maybe there's something going on there. But let me turn these back on. So they are automatic. That's a long commercial break. Unless this is an additional commercial break after the other one. But do you see what I mean about how they're always in commercial breaks? How much time were they actually broadcasting? Let's see. Official. Australia's offered all of Iranian women's soccer team. They're there for the humanitarian. Let's see. It's taken so far. Yeah, I did hear that. Same savvy IQ, but I heard that Trump was basically saying like, just come here, basically to the U.S. And I had heard about 5, and I know that the rest, some turned it down because they wanted to make sure they were home for their family, just in case something went on. I'm going to go see if Al Jazeera has anything. I know that Trump's supposed to be speaking at some point today.
We'll bring that to you. We want to talk about the...
Yeah, so Trump's supposed to be speaking here, I think in the next, actually here shortly. I think it was 3:30 Central. I have no idea what it's on. I don't know if it's war-related or some new AI deal that he made with some billionaire somewhere or something. Let's see. It looks like it's going to be about Iran. Based on what I'm seeing right now. Let me see if I can confirm. President Trump is expected to provide an update on Iran and answer questions from reporters before he leaves Florida on Monday. And it says it's supposed to be at, so it says 5:30 Eastern, which I believe is an hour from now because I'm in Central. Yeah, so a little ways until that. But that should be interesting. Looks like he's actually doing a conference specifically for Iran updates. And up to this point, he's mostly avoided any of that. So that sounded like a strike. Where was that? Is that Beirut?
Wrap things up, the market having another day of resilient price action.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it kind of goes to almost what was happening last Monday as well, but this one was a sharper incline that we saw. What is the market going to be looking at for President Trump remarks and also his news conference later? What do they need to hear to include and really increase this bull theory?
Really two things. One of them, commentary around the Strait of Hormuz. What are they going to do to make sure transit goes through that shipping canal? As a reminder, about 20% of global oil moves through that strait, along with a lot of other products. So it's an extremely important channel for global transit. So any type of, whether it's naval operations or insurance, anything that brings confidence that we'll see oil moving through the Strait of Hormuz is going to be one.
Fuel supplies with major consequences. The main developments this hour. Central Israel has come under another attack, this time from Hezbollah in Lebanon. Rockets have fallen in several areas. 16 people received minor injuries. That attack followed an earlier wave of Iranian strikes. Global financial markets have been feeling the shock of the conflict. The main US indices fell by more than 1% when they opened on Monday, but now have recovered losses following Donald Trump's comments to US media on Iran. Large crowds gathered across Iran in support of...
Just in case, because of that, the music they're playing, I'll let them finish a little intro there. It's really strange the things they copyright. There'll be like this, like a little string, like we were at the beginning of a segment, and then we'll do a video, and then like a week later, we'll get a copyright strike because of that little string sound. So it's pretty touchy. All right, let's see if they're in full.
This is the moment Mojtaba Khamenei, the 56-year-old son of Iran's late supreme leader, is announced as the country's new leader. Supporters say they see his father in him. In a widely circulated message by several state-aligned outlets, a slogan read, "God revealed his hand and Khamenei just got younger," portraying Mojtaba's rise as a continuation of his father's rule. In 1979, Iran's Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was overthrown by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Mojtaba's father, Ali Khamenei, a close ally of Khomeini, quickly rose within the new political order and would later help shape the future of the Islamic Republic. Mojtaba came of age during revolution and war. At just 17, he went to the front lines during the Iran-Iraq war, while his father served as Iran's president. The troops he fought with would later form what became the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, now Iran's most powerful military institution. That relationship would prove decisive decades later. Many say the Guard's loyalty was an important factor in Mojtaba's elevation as Iran's third supreme leader. Mojtaba Khamenei has long been seen as an influential figure behind the scenes, playing a role in the appointment of senior officials and shaping Iran's security institutions through his father's office. In the days leading up to his selection, US President Donald Trump warned that Mojtaba's rise will be unacceptable to Washington. But many in Iran's political and military establishment saw those remarks as interference, further strengthening support for his appointment. Mojtaba's father, mother, sister, wife, son, and several other relatives were recently killed in strikes by US and Israeli forces. Many believe these loss could shape his outlook and possibly push Iran toward a more confrontational path. But some analysts argue the opposite may happen. Under heavy pressure from war and international isolation, they say the Iranian regime now faces two difficult choices: collapse or transform. Because Mojtaba carries the legacy of his father and the revolutionary establishment, they argue he may have the legitimacy to push difficult reforms through without being accused of betraying the revolution. But time may not be on his side. Israeli officials have repeatedly threatened to target any successor to Iran's assassinated supreme leader. But the challenges go beyond external threats. Many in Iran see Mojtaba's appointment as dynastic, arguing that the revolution which toppled a monarchy has now produced another. At a time of war, sanctions and societal polarization, the system's survival may depend on bridging the gap between the state and the people. Under Iran's constitution, Mojtaba Khamenei is both the country's highest political authority and the supreme religious leader for millions of Shias in Iran and beyond. His father assumed power just months after the end of the devastating war with Iraq in the late 1980s. Mojtaba Khamenei takes office during a far more dangerous moment. Whether he can unite the country, end the war, and reopen Iran to the world, or lead it into deeper confrontation and isolation will define the future of the Islamic Republic. Rasul Serdar, Al Jazeera.
US President Donald Trump says he's not happy about the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei as Iran's new supreme leader. In contrast, Russia's president has congratulated him. Vladimir Putin.
The pizza charts are basically an indicator of how busy the government, specifically the Pentagon, is in that area. So the more busy that those pizza places are, especially outside of the regular hours, the more likely is there's something serious going on, and all the people in the government are heads down, and they're too busy to go out to eat lunch and stuff, so they order pizza instead. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
Border.
We're here near the Iraq-Iran border, where in recent days Iraqi authorities have deployed additional security forces as rising tensions from the widening conflict continue to spill over into northern Iraq. Behind me is the frontier with Iran, a mountainous area that has long been used by Iranian Kurdish groups to move between the two countries. Now, this move of deploying additional security forces seems to be sending several messages at once. Firstly, it signals to Iran that Iraq is serious and does not want Iranian opposition groups launching operations into Iran. Secondly, it shows Iran that Iraq is serious about the 2023 security agreement. Now, under that agreement, Baghdad said it would clamp down on Iranian Kurdish opposition groups inside northern Iraq. Also, it signals to those specific Iranian Kurdish armed opposition groups that the additional forces make it very difficult for them to move into Iran, something that Iran has accused those groups of doing. But all this comes as there are increased tensions here in Iraqi Kurdistan. In recent days, armed groups, Iraqi groups aligned to Iran, have launched multiple drone and missile strikes across Iraqi Kurdistan, including the cities of Erbil and Sulaymaniyah. As a result of those strikes, there have been deaths and injuries. Now, the regional Kurdish government seems to be losing patience. The president of the regional Kurdish government, Masoud Barzani, has said that the Kurdish people have always been peaceful and sought coexistence, but there are limits to self-restraint. He called on Baghdad to clamp down on those groups and called those attacks on the cities, on the infrastructure, as well as Peshmerga forces, a war crime. But right now, both Baghdad and the authorities here in Kurdistan are determined not to make this border and this frontier the new front line in this widening conflict. Asad Beg, Al Jazeera, from the Iraq-Iran border.
Turkey's defense ministry says it won't hesitate to act if its airspace or land are threatened. Comments come after a missile was downed. In a statement, the ministry says a ballistic missile launched from Iran and detected heading towards Turkey was intercepted and neutralized by NATO air and missile defense systems. No casualties or damage were reported. Turkish institutions began monitoring the incident immediately. Ankara emphasized its capability and determination to protect national airspace and border security, while warning that further escalation in the region must be avoided. Al Jazeera's Sinem Kosiolu reports now from Istanbul.
This missile incident is definitely a balancing act for Turkey, as Turkey and Iran are neighbors sharing a 534 kilometers of borders that were drawn in the 17th century. No fights, no wars since then, but also Turkey is a NATO ally. It's a NATO country with the second largest military, and according to NATO, any attack targeting a NATO country would be considered an attack targeting all other NATO countries. However, so far, 2 missiles reached Turkish soil. They were intercepted in the atmosphere by the U.S. air defense system in the Eastern Mediterranean. The Iranian side has been saying that that was an accident. The rockets were not targeting Turkey. Turkey made the necessary warnings, and we heard Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Monday saying that they made the necessary warnings to the Iranian side. But however, according to Turkish Foreign Ministry especially, how far these accidents will happen is an important matter. But definitely Turkey doesn't want any destabilization in the region. Turkey doesn't want any destabilization within Iran, and Turkey supports the territorial integrity in the region, all neighbors, all countries. Sinem Köseoğlu, Al Jazeera, Istanbul.
France's President Emmanuel Macron has been visiting his country's Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier, which is in the eastern Mediterranean. He says that France is deploying around a dozen naval vessels to the Mediterranean, Red Sea, and potentially the Strait of Hormuz. Macron said the deployment is part of defensive support to allies threatened by the conflict in the Middle East. Earlier, he visited Cyprus following recent drone incursions on the island.
I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. It will last days or weeks depending on the objectives of each party. I think we will not have any profound changes in the regime just through bombings. But if the final goal is to neutralize the missile and maritime system, then it is achievable in a few weeks. As far as France is concerned, we are not part of this offensive. Our main goal is to protect our people. And we are making sure we can do this for weeks or months if needed. Then, it is to stand by our allies.
Australia's government has agreed to give humanitarian visas to 5 players from the Iranian women's football team. That's after President Trump called for protection for the players. The team was in Australia for the Asia Cup tournament. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, "I just spoke to Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of Australia concerning the Iranian national women's soccer team. He's on it. 5 have already been taken care of, and the rest are on their way. Some, however, feel they must go back because they're worried about the safety of their families, including threats to those family members if they don't return." In any event, the Prime Minister is doing a very good job having to do with this rather delicate situation. God bless Australia. The UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the longer the Iran conflict goes on, the greater the impact it will have on British people and businesses. He says that his government is working with international partners to ease the economic fallout.
A lot of people are going to begin to think, well, that's happening out in Iran and in the Gulf states, but I can sense it's going to affect me back here in the United Kingdom, particularly the economy. The longer this goes on, the more likely the potential for an impact on our economy, impact into the lives and households of everybody and every business. And our job is to get ahead of that, to look around the corner, assess the risk, monitor the risks, and work with others in relation to that.
We'll be going to Florida, I feel, in the next few moments. But before we do, as we've been reporting, the conflict on Iran has pushed oil prices to their highest levels in 4 years on Monday, but they've now begun to ease back somewhat. The surge in oil prices is being felt in all corners of the world. Asian markets have continued to be volatile as the conflict in the Middle East rages on. Rob McBride reports from Kuala Lumpur.
As the oil price surged, stock markets in Asia plummeted. Worst affected were Asia's industrial giants, Japan and South Korea, that rely heavily on imported energy, with Tokyo's Nikkei index losing more than 5%. And South Korea's government putting a cap on domestic fuel prices for the first time in decades, trying to steady fraying nerves.
Given that's difficult to predict how the situation will unfold, our government must prepare proactive measures with a heightened sense of urgency, keeping even the worst-case scenario in mind.
Asian oil producers like Malaysia and Indonesia have been shielded in part from the sudden rise in crude prices. But across the region, there are fears about the effects of this conflict on interconnected economies and industries.
With the ripples of this war spreading far beyond the Middle East, there are growing concerns about the wider impact, such as on Asia's high-tech manufacturing sector. And then for everyone is the looming fear of inflation.
And certainly economic growth will slow and the inflation will pick up. And this is the worst case scenario we saw when the US and Israel started to attack Iran. And everything is getting out of control now.
And should the oil price stubbornly remain above the $100 mark, the question seems to be how economic damage and higher prices for ordinary consumers can be averted. Rob McBride, Al Jazeera, Kuala Lumpur.
Pakistan is closing schools for 2 weeks and limiting the working days of government offices to try to save fuel. The government had already raised the cost of petrol, and that's led to long queues at the pump.
Just some news. Iran's deputy foreign minister says the first condition for a ceasefire is a halt to further attacks. They keep telling us to quit attacking, and I don't think we're going to stop. And then they keep saying that they're going to stop attacking the Gulf, the Gulf states and countries. And they haven't. I think they stopped for like 12 hours maybe or something. And then there's more incoming. So I don't know. I think maybe they're starting to get nervous with what's going on. And then Jonathan Karl from ABC, who's a reporter, he says, I've covered 5 presidents and never seen there's only one he's seen of all the people he's covered with 5 presidents, who is Trump, who will regularly take phone calls from reporters. He spoke to him 3 times daily since the store, they said the war, but its military operation began. And he says he just called and he just answered. So that's interesting. So the president is available to reporters, this guy specifically 3 times a day during this entire last 2 weeks, I guess. I find that pretty interesting. And it's ABC, who is not traditionally friendly towards Trump. But I guess if he's that involved, I don't know if it's maybe to try to help control the narrative or something. And the Trump administration is considering easing some sanctions on Russian oil to slow surging energy prices caused by the renewed U.S.-Israeli conflict with Iran. So they're really trying to start this damage control. And this is interesting. At a recent Mar-a-Lago gathering, Trump informally asked 25 Republican donors and allies whether they'd prefer Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance as the GOP presidential candidate in 2028. And everyone overwhelmingly responded with Rubio. So it's interesting. It looks like maybe Rubio might be going for a 2028 run. Could you imagine Rubio versus Vance? Well, I don't know. Could they be together? Could one be VP and one be president? That'd be interesting. But it looks like Rubio's really pushing his way to the top with this stuff. And it looks like Macron has arrived on a visit to the aircraft carrier and flagship of the French Navy, the Charles de Gaulle. And France will lead the nation as far as this kind of stuff. Well, they're supposedly the main reason they're there is for Cyprus. But also now maybe protecting some of the oil and gas tankers that are in their interest. But I find it interesting that they said they weren't going to, and now they are, while at the same time criticizing everything that's going on. So they're taking action, which is good because they're an ally. And they're also a nuclear nation. So they have less fear of something major happening. But the fact that they're like, we're not going to, then they show up. Like the unwilling friend that wants to, doesn't want to hang out with you, but does anyway. Trying to see real quick if there's any other news. Looks like Qatar is getting more drones and missiles incoming. They've intercepted basically everything, it looks like. So they're doing a good job there. Or there's just not much coming in. And Trump to CBS says, I think the war is very complete, pretty much. They have no Navy, no communications. They've got no Air Force. The U.S. is very far ahead of its initial 4 to 5 week estimate time frame. So we have Trump here basically saying that in 4 to 5 weeks total, so we're 2 weeks in. So in 2 to 3 more weeks, he thinks that we should be where they want it to be. Does that mean that the U.S. pulls out at that point? I guess we'll find out. But I've heard from many sources saying September or further. So maybe this is a situation where the U.S. takes out, like you said, the Air Force, the Navy, communications, hits the bunkers, and then they just turn it over to Israel to finish it off and do whatever they're going to do. But we will see what happens in the long run. Oil prices are dropping following President Trump's remarks. So trying to see if I can get a concrete number here. It says 88.60. That can't be accurate. It didn't drop $20, but it looks like it is going down a little bit. So his damage control for energy costs might be working at this point. All right, so it looks like Trump is going to be live in about 40 minutes. So, and that's supposed to be Iran remarks. So we'll see if his speech is any good. We'll see what he talks about, but I have a feeling it's going to be just saying like, we're doing good, they're doing bad, and everything's going according to plan. If that's the case, then it's not really worth having. We want to know what's actually happening. And I would be interested to get a true count, a true casualty count, not just U.S. citizens, but also the allies. How many people total have been lost? You've heard it isn't possible to sink 25 naval ships at one time. Well, I mean, depending on the ships, but, you know, we have, for example, I think we had 22 or 25 F-22s there. If you just send one each, right, that would take them all at once. I mean, I think it's certainly possible, especially if they don't have good air defense and stuff around them. Yeah, there's no way it's only 7. There's no way. JD, actually, maybe while we wait, JD Vance did what was it? The fire department. He did a speech this morning talking to like EMTs and firefighters, I believe. And it was actually a pretty good speech. Let me see if I can find that. And it's been pretty quiet as far as attacks and missiles and everything else is going. So we've had an hour since any launches. Not much going on in the news cycle. All right, I think it was this one. Let me just make sure before I run this.
Here. It's great to have you in our nation's capital. I always say to everybody, this is a very big group. I can't see any of you because these spotlights are glaring bright. The person who runs these spotlights, Ed, must be a Democrat because I cannot see a single person in that crowd. But I'm told there's about 700 of you out there. And so I say to everybody, whether it's a small school group or 700 great firefighters from all across our country, that this is your nation's capital. This is your capital. Your tax dollars built these beautiful monuments and museums, and I know you got a lot of work to do while you're here in Washington, but I hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy this beautiful city, especially as the weather turns really nice here in Washington, D.C. Now, the one bad thing about the weather is when it starts to get warm, you know, as a politician, we're gearing up for political campaign season. And I'm probably as sick of politics as you all are. So that's the one downside.
Now, I won't make you watch the whole thing. But basically, long story short, he thanks them for what they do. He says that they're heroes. He gives some emotional examples of like his mother. I guess she was a druggie or something. So he talks about how she's sober now for like 11 years and how she was honored in the White House. But it was if you had never seen him before or met him before or knew anything about him, then it's a pretty decent speech. But, I don't know. People feel different ways about different people. I know some people are anti-JD, but I thought it was interesting. At least he honored the people, showed them respect and that kind of stuff. So, it could be just a political move. You never know with this stuff. But real quick in the chat, if you would go for JD Vance, put a 1. If you would go for Marco Rubio, put a 2. And we're talking about for 2028, run for president. So 1 for Vance, 2 for Rubio. Lots of 3s. Couple 1s. Okay. Couple Vancers.
Who had left a legacy of bravery. Everybody talked about it for years, and it was time for him to get the Congressional Medal of Honor. They didn't want to stand for him. There's something wrong with those people, and we can't let them ever be in a position where they can lead this country again or destroy this country again, because we almost lost this country. This country was close to being lost. The representatives in this room provided the pivotal votes in securing a record $1 trillion for the United States military this year. And now the world is witnessing the importance of that investment with one of the most complex and stunning operations ever conducted. And that's Operation Epic Fury. That's a great name, isn't it? Epic Fury. That's even better than Midnight Hammer, which was pretty good too, right? That was where we knocked out their nuclear potential. That was a big day, because if we didn't do that, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks. And I think we'd be in a lot different situation. And then you had, of course, what they did in Venezuela, how that was just so far so good. We've done a real job. We've got all good ones. If you go back and you look at Afghanistan with Biden, one of the worst, I think the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. If you look at what happened with Jimmy Carter, also with Iran, but if you look at what happened with the helicopters and the hostages, it cost them the election. It was what a mess. The world respects us right now more than they have ever respected us before. And because of Republicans, you people in Congress, the United States has by far the strongest and most powerful military on the face of the earth. We're the strongest military anywhere in the earth, and now everybody understands it. Together with our Israeli partners, we're crushing the enemy in an overwhelming display of technical skill and military force. Iran's drone and missile capability is being utterly demolished. The Navy is gone. It's all lying at the bottom of the ocean. 46 ships. Can you believe it? In fact, I got a little upset with our people. I said, what quality of ship? Excellent, sir. Top of the line. I said, why did we just capture the ship? We could have used it. Why did we sink them? They said, it's more fun to sink them. I said, they like sinking them better. They say it's safer to sink them. I guess it's probably true. But think of it, we knocked out 46, and actually took 3.5 days. Their terrorist leaders are gone. We're counting down the minutes until they will be gone. Think of it, we had leaders, and they're gone. Then we had new leaders, and they're gone. And now nobody has any idea who the people are that are going to be the head of the country, and will not relent until the enemy is totally and decisively defeated. And remember, Iran did so many bad things. They were really, if you look at Soleimani, who was taken out, as you know that, but you know who. But if you look at Soleimani, the father of the roadside, you call it a roadside bomb because most people don't understand the different terms. It was when they plant bombs in roads, as you drive by, happily drive by, the bomb goes off, and no matter how strong the armament, it just kills the people. Or you lose your arms, legs, and face. And those bombs got worse and worse, and he got happier and happier, and we took him out. That was a big thing because he was the head. It might have been a much different story. They may have been much more capable than they are had he lived, because he was capable. He was vicious, violent, and capable. But we got rid of him first term. And we did so many things. I mean, we've done so many things. But as you know, on Saturday, I traveled to Dover Air Force Base to be with the families of 6 fallen warriors as they returned to American soil. And I know that everyone in this room joins me in sending our prayers and eternal gratitude to the families of those great heroes. Those families are incredible families. Devastating to be. Hardest thing to do. You know, I've done it a lot. The hardest thing to do is to go to Dover, because Dover is where, for the most part, a lot of the fallen, the warriors, the great young people that have died in war, they seem to mostly go to Dover. They come home to Dover. Dover does a great job of handling things. They have men assigned to the family. They have men and women that are incredible assigned to the families. It's a beautiful thing, but it's also a very sad thing. But they all said one thing to me. Make sure you win, sir. Make sure you win. They weren't playing games. They want to make sure. They said it. Everybody said it. They were separate, but everybody said the same thing. Make sure you win. We will. We've already won in many ways, but we haven't won enough. We go forward more determined than ever to achieve ultimate victory that will end this long-running danger once and for all. 47 years. It should have been done a long time ago. The world would have been a different place had some president had the courage to go and do it. They should have done it many, many times. They had many opportunities. The United States of America is the greatest and most exceptional nation in human history and will not be threatened by evil terrorists and lunatics any longer. We just can't do that. And, you know, when I always talk about how great our nation is, I don't know. I don't consider our nation very great for 4 years under Biden. We were a laughingstock all over the world. We were a laughingstock. So, you know, I say great, 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 but I don't know. When you look at what happened with so many different things, the open border, 25 million people, many of them very bad people pouring into our country with open borders that just said, come on in, makes no difference. They emptied their jails into our country. 11,888 murders, 50% of which murdered more than one person. The drug dealers came in, the mentally insane came in, they emptied their mental institutions, they emptied their insane asylum. That's a step above a mental institution. They emptied them all right into our country. And we've done a great job of doing what we've done. Think of it, we have the lowest crime rate that we've ever had. We have the lowest murder rate in 125 years, and we're saddled with all of the problems of the criminals that were let in. You know, look, they're smart people. I know the people that run those countries, every one of them, and they're all streetwise, very smart, and I would do exactly the same thing. They emptied their jails into our country. I said that was going to happen when I heard that they were having open borders. I didn't believe that they were going to have it. When I realized that they actually were going to have open borders, I said, we're going to have every person in jail. We're going to have every drug dealer. We're going to have all these countries all over the world. The Congo, they emptied their jails all the way from the Congo to all parts of South America, Asia. They sent in their people in jail, murderers. Some of the worst people on earth got sent into our country. And I'll tell you what, ICE is unbelievable, what they have to put up with and how tough they have to be. It goes for Border Patrol, and it goes for law enforcement, our law enforcement people. But sadly, even as our service members are fighting bravely to protect America abroad, the Democrat minority in Congress is deliberately sabotaging our national security at home. And you're going through it right now, fellas. I mean, you're going through, it's not even believable. You know, we should be very safe right now, especially when we're attacking somebody that's evil, bad intention. But last week, 53 House Democrats voted against a resolution affirming that Iran remains the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Who the hell would do that? I mean, almost every act, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah, no matter what, you take a look, it's Iran or Iran sponsored. And even more outrageously, as we speak, Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security. They've got it shut down. Do you believe it? Right now. Because they care more about amnesty for illegal alien criminals than about protecting the lives of American citizens. I mean, take a look at it. The American citizen is being scoffed at by Democrats. It doesn't make sense. None of this stuff makes sense to me, you know, when they sat and they wouldn't stand up for incredible people. They just refused to clap, stand up. By the end of the speech, by the way, they were all standing because somebody was passing them. No, you people are getting killed tonight. They were all they'd stand up for everything I was saying. At the end, that last half hour, they were standing up for things that they shouldn't have stood up for because they got the word, you're getting killed tonight. Stand up and clap for the woman that just lost her daughter, please, to a violent criminal. But Democrats must vote immediately to reopen the Department of Homeland Security so that we have the resources to keep America safe.
So during a time period that we have terrorist attacks that are starting, the DHS is shut down.
Again, and America is respected again. And I think we have a country that's as hot as it's ever been, ever before, maybe hotter. And I say it all the time. The king of Saudi Arabia said it to me better than anybody could say it. He said, you know, I get along with him very well, very smart person. He said, you know, a year and a half ago, your country was dead, absolutely dead. We never thought it was coming back. And now you have the hottest country anywhere in the world. It's true. We're the hottest country anywhere in the world, by far. And that's before we showed off our military strength with Venezuela and now with Iran. You know, Iran was supposed to be this big, powerful country. We wrapped the hell out of them. And, you know, I don't know when they cry uncle, but they should have cried it 2 days ago, right? But they don't have anything left. In our country, inflation is plummeting. Incomes are rising. The economy is surging. Our border is the most secure at any time in American history. And the murder rate is the lowest in 125 years. That's before my father was born. My father was born 6 years later than that. I don't know if he'd like me to say that. Never liked to talk about his age. He said, don't talk about that. But think about 125 years ago, 1900, the year 1900. The stock market has set 53 all-time record highs since the election. And it's going to go a lot higher as soon as we get rid of this stuff that we're doing right now, that we really had no choice. I mean, I think I asked people, I said, would you rather do this or would you rather go along nice and smoothly, but eventually have a catastrophe the likes of which perhaps the world has never seen? And just about everybody says, except for lunatics, said, no, you had to get it done. Should have been done a long time ago. The average 401k is up almost $35,000. Think of that. It's at the best they've ever done. And I think you're going to see some real numbers when this gets, because this was always a dark cloud hanging over not only Israel, which was going to get wiped out. You know, if we didn't do that B-2 attack, Israel would have been wiped out. They would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks after that. And even now, I think they were looking to take over the Middle East, because when you look, and we have pretty good proof, all of those missiles that were so stupidly aimed at Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, they were all aimed, and others, at countries that were sort of like, leave us alone. They were all right. They were sort of neutral, but they weren't doing it. All of a sudden, they're getting hit with missiles. And they could have gone one of two ways. They could have gone toward their side, like, we're with you, or they could have gone with our side, and they really went with our side, and they've helped us, and they've been a big force. But they got hit. But they were going to be hit with us. Had we not done the B-2 raid, and if we not done this one where we said, nope, it's time to go in, we have to go in, have no choice. Number one, if we didn't go in, they would have come in after us, because I see the Democrats trying to justify it, and they're failing because the voter on the street is saying, you got to be kidding. But I see where they're going, where they're always saying, no, there was no reason. Well, I'll give you the best reason of all. Within a week, if they were going to attack us, 100%. They were ready. They had all these missiles, far more than anyone thought. And they were going to attack us. But they were going to attack all of the Middle East and Israel. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it on Israel. And this was going to be a major attack. And they had all of those missile sites and all those launchers that we Got rid of about 80% of them right now, by the way. Got rid of most of the, it's died down to a trickle. There are very few launchers left. What our military has done is amazing. They wiped out almost 20%, maybe 22, 23%, but the rest are going very quickly. And the missiles have been largely knocked out. The drones have been knocked down, and we're hitting where they make the drones. We know them all, and we're knocking the hell out of that now where they manufacture the drones. A lot of work, a lot of brilliant work, but we're going to have a much safer world as soon as it's finished, and it's going to be finished pretty quickly. With the help of our House Republican majority, we passed the largest tax cuts in American history, and we have to be talking about it. And with the great, big, beautiful bill, we delivered no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. And we did something else which is great that nobody ever talks about, Tom, and we have to talk about it. We made interest on auto loans fully deductible. That's never happened. We've never had that. Rich people always get deductions, but middle-income people, people that have to struggle a little bit, never did. But now they can deduct the interest paid against their taxes. We have one little proviso, and I put this on, it's very important, only if the car is made in America. All right? That's going to have a huge impact. That's going to have a huge impact. We passed the Trump accounts to give every child in America a head start on the American dream, and that's so good. It was, I'll tell you, the Dell family, Dell computer, put up $6.25 billion. Think of it. Started with very little, nothing, very, very little. Started making computers on his bed. And he said, yeah, people started liking them better than the ones from the store. And he never stopped. And he can write a check for $6.25 billion. He said, and his incredible wife, Susan, they said that's the best thing they've ever done. He's so proud. He's going to do it again. Going to do more. And we have a lot of other people. A lot of very rich people are doing it. A lot of people that aren't so rich are doing it. They're doing it for their kids, but it's turning out. So a young child turns 18 or 21, and all of a sudden they have $100,000 in the bank. What a difference that is between having that and having nothing. And it could be more than that. It could be a lot more depending on what happens with the world. And we passed 100% expensing and bonus depreciation on all new equipment, factory construction and investments, and that's what made our first term. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country in the first term, and this one's going to blow it away. Again, we had a little pause, but it's not a very big pause. With your help, we also passed the largest regulation cuts in American history, ending the Green New Scam, one of the greatest scams in history, and massively increasing production of American oil, natural gas, and clean, beautiful coal. We brought coal back. You're not allowed to say coal without clean, beautiful. Got to be clean, beautiful. China uses coal. They're building about 65 massive coal plants right now. But China, great respect for China, but they make all the windmills, right? The only thing they don't do is use the windmills. They make them. But try finding wind farms in China. There aren't too many of them. In my State of the Union address, I laid out an ambitious agenda that should be our roadmap this year, and it's starting with lowering the cost of living. They gave us a mess. We inherited a mess, an absolute mess. And the mess was many things. They were bad with our military. They were bad with everything. I mean, I said, name one thing that they did right. They can't name one thing. But they also gave us very high prices. And then they said the word affordability. That's the first time I ever heard it. They said affordability. My first day in office, they said affordability. They're the ones that caused the problem, but we're really bringing down prices big. Do you notice you don't hear that word anymore, Mike? They don't say it anymore because we brought down prices so much. So our message is simple. Democrats created the high prices, and our policies are totally ending them, and they're ended, and we're doing better. We're even bringing them down further. They'll be way down, and we're bringing, if you go back into the last period, I would say, I think it's 2.5 months, 1.7% inflation. 3 months, 1.45% inflation. Think of that. Whereas they had the highest inflation in the history, the single highest inflation in the history of our country. Now, you know, I always say this. They say 48 years because I don't want the fake news to get me on this. They say it wasn't history. It was 48 years that the inflation was the highest in 48 years. But I don't know. In some ways, 48 years sounds even worse because it's very specific. You know? But they had the highest inflation probably in history, but in 48 years, we inherited that. One of the first targets must be the crushing healthcare. We have to crush and take over the healthcare situation, which we can do. For the first time, we can do it since the passage of the Unaffordable Care Act. Big insurance companies have gotten rich. They've made money like practically no other companies have made, with our government giving them hundreds of billions of dollars, and their stock prices soaring to up to 1,700%, 1,000%, 1,200%, 1,600%, and even 1,700%. The government gave them essentially trillions of dollars. And I want that money to be paid to the person, not to the insurance company, and let them go out and buy their own health care. And people love it. People love it. You'll get better health care at a much lower cost, and they'll be sort of part of the system. But the money we spend on is so much. We spend numbers that nobody could even believe. But the healthcare companies, because the Democrats are owned by the insurance companies, remember that. And so they have a problem. That's why it's hard to get it fixed, because they are totally owned and controlled by the healthcare, by the insurance companies. Healthcare insurance, but the insurance companies themselves. So when you want to do something that's good for the people but bad for the insurance companies, it's very, very hard for them to go in a different way. Now, Republicans never do that kind of thing, right? You're owned by nobody, right? Nobody. See, a young girl up here say yes. Some of them are a little bit shaky, but they're Republicans. We love them. We love them anyway, right, Mike? But they are owned by those big, powerful insurance companies that are making a fortune, and it's hard to get them to do the right thing. They know what the right thing is. So we want the money to be paid directly to the people and let the people go out and buy their own health care. And people love it. They love it. We can own the issue. For the first time ever, Republicans can own that issue. I'm also asking you to take swift action to codify my most favored nation policy on drug prices, the biggest. That alone should win the midterms. We have, and I tell this story all the time, my first term, third year, I actually had a slight, it was 1/4% decline in drug price. First time in 28 years. I was so proud. I went home, told our great first lady, who's now a movie star, I got the biggest, can you believe this? That movie was hot. And it is hot. She became a movie star. It was a good movie. But I went home and I said, you know, it's amazing. We do so well. We work so hard. This issue is the single biggest issue.
I'm thinking at this point we can turn him off. I thought there was going to be something new or groundbreaking or some actual like useful news or something, but it seems like he's just kind of going through the regular talking points. There's nothing real new coming out. And I've seen, let's see, Al Jazeera. I was looking to see if they're actually doing any war coverage right now. Yeah, it looks like all the news stations are just playing him. So I will wait. I'll just leave it to live monitoring for now. I'm guessing Fox is probably the same. Yeah, they're all just playing Trump. So we will not do that. I mean, it's good to hear what they're saying, but when it's the same stuff repeated and no new information, then it's not really worth taking the time to mess with at the moment. It looks like there's some more major attacks going on in Tehran right now. Trying to decide which ones to show. Some very, very strange. That is crazy looking. Let's look at this really quick. So this is some footage. This is from Karaj, Iran. Look at this blue, like lightning looking attacks. Look at that. I've never seen anything like that before. Interesting. There's another one that's different, but it's the same blue. Huh. That's interesting. It looks like most of the other news is just Trump. So he said they've gotten rid of 80% of Iran's missile sites. Yet Iran says they can still go for 10 years. So I'm sure they missed something. It's a huge country. They have them buried down under mountains. So looks like, just lots of explosions, lots of attacks. And that strange blue. I'm really curious what that is. It could just be the way the clouds are and stuff, but it's very, very interesting looking. Yeah, I see people are talking about these, specifically about these unusual explosions. I don't know. I don't know what that is. I've never seen anything like that. It doesn't look nuclear or anything like that, but it's the coloration. I know they were talking about a new bomb. Was it Qatar? Let me see. This Qatar or someone had a new type of munition that was supposed to be, but it was way bigger than those explosions. Yeah, it wouldn't be the same one. So I'm not sure what that is. I'm actually going to look that up here really quick. I'm going to ask Grok. Oh, is Grok down? Grok down, outage. Interesting. Is anyone else able to access Grok through grok.com? I haven't been able to access it all day long. Interesting. I wonder if Grok works through the regular posts. Yeah, it's working there. Interesting. Looks like grok.com might be down for me at least. Elon throwing a temper tantrum. That's funny. All right. I think what I'll do, since Trump he's basically just saying the same old, and there's nothing different on any channels. They're all doing his speech, and we've covered all the news that's out right now. I don't see any attacks incoming or anything happening, and it looks like a good amount of you have already left, probably mostly due to the Trump speech, but I think I'll call it here. I do want to go over the super chats though. And let's see. Sarah Bryan says, awesome. Thank you, much appreciated. Julia Burgoyce. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Burgoyce. Thanks for that. Looks like, Mumu or Mama, whatever that name is, was being rude earlier, people said. Christ is king indeed. Maldives, all ties cut. No ISR allowed. Interesting. Thanks for that super. William, Matt, love your feed. You need a hoodie with Iran as a new golf course for tourist travel. That's funny. Looks like you have a couple more. The scary movie is the uranium is already... The scary movie? The scary movie is the uranium is already dispersed and outside of Iran. No one has confidence that we know where it is. Well, and the other part of it, too, is it was in gas form, which was interesting. So Very easy to transport. Smarty Pants Dance, thanks for the super. Why do you think that about pizza? There are 3 food courts inside the Pentagon plus mini marts. You don't need to leave for food. I don't know. That's just the way they have it set up. You know, it's like this ongoing thing where, and it's not always 100% accurate, but it is usually a pretty good indicator. So if that pizza, this right here, this Pentagon pizza, especially in the evening, if it's late night and you have all of these up, sometimes these are like 2, 3, 4,000% spikes, then that's a huge indicator. And typically shortly after that, we'll see nuclear attack codes come in. We'll see a war start. We'll see some kind of conflict somewhere. We'll see, you know, nuclear control planes and that kind of stuff flying up around places they usually don't. So it's not necessarily like a replacement for real intel. It's kind of like a fun way to say, hey, there might be something going on here, right? This is just an indicator. But I think that is all the supers. You are very welcome. All right, cool. All right, I will call it there then. As always, I appreciate everyone being here. Make sure you guys hit that like on the way out. And like I said, you know, I'll keep trying to keep doing this coverage, but it's getting throttled drastically. Like, for example, like just right now, like Iked Mel, he covers, you know, just like daily news type stuff like Nancy Guthrie case and like this war stuff now. And, you know, he'll have like 2,700 to like 6,000 or 7,000 people in his live, which is what I was having before when I was doing the Charlie Kirk stuff initially. And even that got throttled down. When I started doing like the Mike theories and those type of things with John Bray, then I started getting like throttled down to like under 1,000 every single time when I was consistently getting like 2,000 to 4,000 before that. And then now with this, I'm seeing pretty consistently that other people doing the same coverage are having like 2,000 plus easily, where I haven't broken 1,000. Like the first day of the war, I think I had 1,500 or something. So I know there's a lot of algorithm stuff that happens. And like if you change what you're doing, it can confuse the algorithm for a period of time. But I'll try to keep doing this as long as I can. You know, if it gets to the point where it's just not fruitful, I'm not sure how long I can keep it up. But I will get that 24/7 monitoring dashboard stuff set up in the next couple days. I should have my radio and stuff set up for tomorrow. And then once the codes and stuff are all dialed in, then I'll get the whole thing going. So, but I appreciate everyone being here. And I'll see you on the next one.